Ted Lasso is a series that far surpasses its back-of-the-box description. If you'd told me 6 months ago that one of my favorite shows of the year would be one about an American coach taking over an English football team, I would have obnoxiously laughed in your face non-stop until you left the room from awkwardness.
High five, tree. Woo!
But saying Ted Lasso is about soccer would be like saying that Parks and Rec is about the intricacies of managing an underfunded department in a small municipal council. It is technically true, but it is very far from the whole story. Instead, Ted Lasso uses its larger-than-life premise to tell a deeper story, one whose message is exactly what all of us need in the slow-rolling catastrophe that is being alive in the year 2021. And that's because its story isn't actually about football, it's about people. I don't mean the show's marvelous and compelling cast of characters, but people in general. The series uses the fact that Ted Lasso is a coach to delve deeply into our most basic and fundamental human needs. Some characters are conniving plotters, others are shunned loners, others are angry at the world, and some others simply feel like they have been defined by their labels. But the one thing that unites all of them, and the one thing that unites all of us, is our need for compassion and empathy. To have people in our lives who truly see and accept us for who we are. It's that premise that's at the center of the show, and the reason why it has so much heart. Where a lot of modern shows double down on cynicism, or on reflecting our dramatic and chaotic world back at us through dramatic and chaotic conflict, Ted Lasso chooses to do the opposite. And that is in spite of its premise. The real-world environment of football clubs is definitely a heightened one. Players' conflicts fill entire websites. Winning and losing can feel like life or death, and very often the team with the most money is the team that wins. Ted Lasso as a show doesn't back down or deny these realities. That is what makes it so powerful. Confronted with this world seemingly built on cynicism, the character of Ted Lasso chooses compassion and empathy. And that has incredible results. Not necessarily in a sporting sense, but in a human one. Ultimately, the series shows that the wider world, and all of its apocalyptic stakes, is often totally out of control. But when we face that wider world, there is something that we can control. And that is how we show up for the people in our local world, the others who live in our community, our friends, our family, and our fellow oppressed co-workers. When confronted with a betrayal at the end of the show's first season, Ted doesn't hesitate to forgive the character who did the betraying. Not because the actions didn't have a negative impact, but because the actions were taken by someone who was in pain. Instead of focusing on the act itself, he focuses on understanding that character's emotional world. And in doing so, he accepts their mistake and forgives them. Over and over, the series emphasizes listening and compassion above all else. It is not simply about being nice all of the time, as that would just enable a message of toxic positivity. Sometimes being compassionate means listening to someone and telling them that what they're doing is wrong or harmful. But that's never a judgment on who they are as a person. It's about accepting that we're all human, and when we're hurt, we lash out or make mistakes. So whether that compassion comes in the form of simply being there for someone, or taking an active role in helping them get better, Ted Lasso reminds us that in an ever more chaotic world, it's up to us to be there for those that we care about. That is something that we can control. Because ultimately, compassion and understanding are among the greatest gifts we can give each other as people. Not for the expectation of anything in return, but simply because that's what living together should be all about. Thanks for watching, everyone. I didn't want to delve too deep into the show or spoilers, as I only got into it 2 weeks ago, and it just won a bunch of Emmys, so I'm sure a bunch of people are getting into it or are curious about it for the first time. So I hope this has given you some idea of what the show is about and what makes it so special without actually ruining much of anything. This video, as always, is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to help me out and help me make content for this channel, there's a link somewhere around.